up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog, back in Standard here with a Dimir Rogues list. So the nice thing about playing Rogues is, you're pretty safe from bans. Obviously, we know at some point Omnath is probably going to get banned, or at least something in that deck will eventually get banned. It's just Uro for now, which arguably doesn't even hurt that deck that much. But anyway, Rogues, I feel like it's a pretty safe list, and it kind of fills that slot that Simic Flash and Mono Blue Temple have filled in most recent seasons. This is kind of my version of it here. So we have 4 copies of Merfolk Windrobber. It's a 1/1 flyer for 1 mana. When it deals damage to a player, that player mills a card. So just 1 card at a time. It's not really not too bad. We can also sacrifice it to draw a card, but only if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. So if it's a 1/1 flyer that's not able to get through, maybe they've got another flyer down, a bigger one of their own, you can just sack it and then dig for some more removal or a counter magic or something else that you might be relevant in that matchup. We have 3 copies here of Bloodchief Search, just fantastic removal here. Scales really well, of course. In the late game, hitting creatures or planeswalkers of any size. Thieves Golden Enforcer, of course, one of the best reasons to be in Rogues. Flash, 1 mana, and then once your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, it becomes a basically a 3/2 Death Toucher, so that's pretty sweet. 4 copies here of Jwari Disruption. It's a counter spell on the one side, where you counter a spell unless their controller pays 1 mana, or it comes down as a tapped blue source. So just having that flexibility is pretty nice, especially in a tempo list like this, where we're not super mana intensive. Like once you get up to like 3-4 mana, we're pretty much good for the rest of the game. So having once you get 2 tap land, two lands down, having this come down tapped isn't really necessarily that big of a deal. 2 Heartless Act, just one of the premium removal spells here. 4 Drown the Loch, obviously removal or counter spell, depending on your opponent's graveyard, of course. But we're trying to mill them out, and we can do that pretty efficiently here. So Drown the Loch should be pretty good for us in most situations. Soaring Thought-Thief, be able to flash us in as a 1/3 flyer, pump it up your other rogues, give them +1, and milling your opponent whenever you attack with rogues. 2 cards you mill them with. That's pretty sweet. Brazen Borrower, of course, is automatic, just a good card in general. Glasspool Mimic is pretty interesting because it's a rogue naturally, and it can come down as a copy of any creatures we already control, or we can just play it as a tapped blue source. Having that flexibility here is nice. Nighthawk Scavenger, just a really nice value creature here. 3 of though. It's a 3 mana, of course, double black. Flying Death Touch Lifelink. Power is 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyard. So lands, planeswalkers, creatures, enchantments, artifacts, etc. So most of the time this can be at least a 2 or a 3 powered creature, even if you play it on curve. And the late game obviously can be a 4/5 powered creature as well. So it's pretty solid. And of course the lifelink and even Death Touch. So pretty much just good card all around. Hagra Mauling, kind of similar to the Disruption here, gives us kind of a flexibility here for removal, or a land here, tapped of course, but instant speed removal is fantastic. 2 copies here of Rankle. It is legendary, it is a rogue. All the modes are generally going to be pretty effective. We don't have too much necessarily to sacrifice, maybe the Windrobber in certain situations. Just kind of depends, but yeah, just a good card all around. And Zareth San, the Trickster, of course. Just 2 copies, feel like it's a little bit situational. Obviously, you get to steal your opponent's best permanent that's already in their graveyard. Obviously, we're going to be milling them, so hopefully it'll be like something good, like a creature or a planeswalker, but it could just be a land sometimes, so not necessarily ideal. And it is a little bit more on the expensive side, especially if you're not able to get through with creatures for whatever reason. Then having to pay the full 5 mana for this is a little steep. But otherwise, being able to flash us in for a 4/4 is pretty cool. Otherwise, it doesn't have any evasion, doesn't have flying or anything like that. So once you get that first proc to steal something, after that, it's just kind of a 4/4, which is, it's okay. Mana base here, let's have the 1 copies here of Agadeem's Awakening. That's all I have, but it's also kind of feel like that's all you really need to run. Like, it's not like super great in the late game. It is certainly an option to cast this as a sorcery and get back maybe a couple creatures with this, since we do have some pretty cheap, efficient creatures, the 1/2 drop especially. But otherwise, if you're waiting to cast this in the super late game, you're probably pretty far behind at that point, especially in more of a tempo style list. But it's obviously in situations it can be pretty helpful. So I feel like it's worth running at least the 1 copy, but probably not need to be too much more than like 2 copies at the most. Mana base here, 5 island, 5 swamp, 4 pathways here, Clearwater Pathways, which can be blue or black, and then the 4 Temple of Deceit. You know, all the fixing we can get, and of course we don't have the shocklands anymore, so temples and pathways it is. Sideboard here, we have a couple copies here of Miscast. I was able to counter instants and sorceries for a single blue mana. Trying to be as super as efficient as we can, so just 1 mana as a counterspell is pretty important. And you know, we're trying to tempo out our opponents, so just trying to kill them as quickly as possible. 2 copies here of Anticognition, counter a creature or a planeswalker spell unless they pay 2 mana. However, if they have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, just a hard counter, and we get to scry 2. 1 copy here of Thieving Skydiver. So it's a pretty fun card. Is a Merfolk Rogue, of course, with flying, a 2/1. So it's a pretty solid body. If nothing else, it has Kicker X, where we can kick it to basically steal an artifact on our opponent's side, and if it's an equipment, we get to attach it to the Skydiver. So obviously, Boros equipments got a lot of support. Even the landfall decks, they have like the Skyclave pickaxe or whatever it is, where you get the boost for landfall triggers, so that can be a pretty reasonable target to steal. Obviously, Embercleave is 6 mana, so Kicker 6x, 8 total mana to cast this is a little unrealistic probably, but what's that other Shadow Spear? Obviously, is certainly a reasonable target. So there's some decent targets in certain matchups, but just one of, obviously, since it is super situational. A couple copies of Feed the Swarm. Since we're in Dimir colors, we don't have very many options for enchantments. Well, Feed the Swarm gives us that option, and also made creatures as well. It is sorcerer speed. A couple copies here of Didn't Say Please, just some more counters to actually mill our opponent as well. It's pretty cool. A couple copies of Mystical Dispute, so we can counter you know, other control decks or Omnaths, things like that. A couple Soul Shatters for the creatures that can't be countered. Obviously, the Cragplate Baloth in green can't be countered, and it has Hexproof and Haste. So Soul Shatter is kind of the only way to deal with it. So if you're in Dimir colors or just in black in general, you should probably be running 1 or 2 copies of Soul Shatter in your sideboard. A couple copies here of E2 Extinction, just some more instant speed removal on creatures and planeswalkers, and the Surveil effect is pretty sweet as well. Alright, that's the list. We'll jump into those matches. Alright, up against Susan. Better go first. Perfect. Missing a second black source, but I think we still keep it. Zareth San's a little awkward, but we still have the Bloodchiefs and the Thieves Guild Enforcer. And probably play the Mimic here as a land. We'll lead with the Temple and see what we can find. Untapped land, maybe? A Windrobber. I mean, that's fine too, I guess. So we'll play the Mimic, and then we have we're going to get the Windrobber online since that does not have flash. We'll just save the Thieves Guild Enforcer, I guess. Okay, they're a mill deck. A Ruin Crab. Dimir Mill. There's a Drown in the Loch. Well, we have flying, so we can get around that. We also have a way to kill your stupid little crab. We'll do that, and we're going to mill you. How do you like being milled? Mill deck? Alright, so I just leave it on top if they have more mill. I kind of want them to mill this, so we'll leave it there. I'm gonna guess they have some way to mill us right here, because I don't really want a land. Okay, so no crab. They played a land, but they have a tutelage, so that's gonna mill us. Perfect. It was pretty likely they would have something. Deliberate. Seems pretty medium. We got a land anyway. Do you want to steal their crab? I mean, we can. Doesn't seem ideal, but what else are we going to get? Okay, what a Jwari Disruption? Maybe they'll just add to the board and just trying to race them. Sure. Obviously, lifelink on this doesn't really matter. We're just trying to push damage across as much as possible. Revenger Raven's pretty annoying. Now we can't attack with the Windrobber. As it just gets negated by the Revenge. Again, not really anything worth getting with the Zareth San. We could attack and then just flash in the Zareth San, but let's hold open here, see what they got. Okay, they want to mill us. We need him to tap out to get any value off this disruption. Doesn't look very likely here. Top. You can't play the Secret Keeper. You're tapped out on blue. Pestilent Haze to kill our Windrobber. I mean, do you want to play this as a land? It doesn't really matter. We'll just keep it. Not that Windrobber's really doing anything for us here. Another land isn't ideal, obviously. Do we want their crab? They're one card off. Be able to pump up the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Well, let's attack for 4 here. 5, and then they gain the 1, so it's effectively 4. I guess maybe we'll just flash in the Zareth San. I'm not really sure how we're going to get value off of it in this matchup. Okay, our opponent packs it in. Kind of surprising here. Okay. 7 enchantments. Can I see the graveyard? There we go. I don't really care about Deliberate. Don't really care too much about Pestilent Haze either, honestly. Rain of Revelation is kind of whatever. Opt. There's got to be some better removal than just Pestilent Haze and things like that. So probably want Feed the Swarm. They could have more creatures, so maybe we want some creature removal still. Obviously, they have the Crab, which can get pretty annoying. Zareth San, felt pretty medium there, so let's bring in the Dinsei, please. Do we even want Miscast? Let's just bring in the Mystical Dispute, I guess. Both of them. I don't want to mess with our mana base too much here, so obviously I have to be careful with Hagra Mauling, Mimic. And we're not super mana intense, especially taking out the Zareth Sands at kind of at the top end. Probably don't want this Mystical Dispute though. Maybe we shave Hagra Mauling. I'm going to kind of lower our curve a little bit, so it's probably okay. Anticognition, no. Alright, so have Bloodchief's Thirst and Feed the Swarm to kind of deal with the crab. Brazen Borrower can bounce it. Hagra Mauling can kill it. Maybe we need to respect the crab a little bit more. We'll just try it. It's a little tricky trying to figure out how to exactly tweak to the sideboard sometimes. You kind of want to deal with the crab, but then you want to deal with other things as well. Probably need to get these temples down first. Obviously 3 lands, we're going to keep it. We'll just leave Dispute open, I guess. Double Windrobber is nice. But if they give us something to counter, then definitely want to fire out this Dispute. And Rune Crab is definitely a good target. We saw them do it last game where they waited till turn 2 to play the Rune Crab. So being able to counter that was nice. Alright, no counter magic here. So we'll go and drop the Windrobber. Scry. Do they have another crab? Maybe. We'll keep it just in case. Not sure what other creatures they might have that we need to be concerned with. They could have a Teferi Planeswalker. Might be worth Bloodchief's Thirsting. Alright, opponent has 4 cards in the bin, so we probably want to leave open some counter magic here. more land. Like just being more efficient here, digging for as many answers as possible. Alright, so Drown the Loch can counter pretty much anything here, unless I didn't say please. Counter. So we'll just kind of play the counter game. So we need to add more board presence here at some point. We can flash in the Borrower or the Thieves Gold Enforcer whenever. Alright, so we got our counter magics out of the way. So now we need to just start adding to the board here. And hope our opponent doesn't have like an Extinction event or something like that. We got another Revenge of Ravens out of the way, which is pretty nice. Alright, we can flash in the Thieves Guild Enforcer. We have Petty Theft or Bloodchief's Thirst. Let's see, they have 12. Oh, well, go ahead and draw some cards, I guess. Thanks. Flash that in. 3-2. Rankle. We're missing lands, unfortunately. Well, attack 3, get the Scavenger down. Manning Coffin, yep. Field Research. That's kind of a bad card, but okay. Murderous Rider. Still missing lands. Well, we'll get the Robber down. Bake into a Pie and Grasp of Darkness. Double black in a 2-color list. Maybe. Murderous Rider number 2. Alright, well there goes our Thieves Guild Enforcer. We'd love to get this Rankle online. Our opponent's doing us a huge favor with these Murderous Riders. We hit them for 4. 4 cards in hand. I think we actually do the card draw here. Put them down to 3. There we go. Alright, we got Sabam H. It's a decent enough hand. We'll go ahead and keep it. Fabled Passage. Let's go ahead and lead with the Windrobber here. And I crack it immediately to show it planes. See what that means. So we have a Disruption or a Thought-Thief available to us next turn. Fearless Fledgling. Isn't that just the cutest thing? So this gets a +1 counter. Let's just go ahead and kill that before it starts growing. And then we have the Disruption or Thought-Thief available next turn. Swarm Shambler. Okay, so just like a Selesnya counters list. Orn Reef Ooze. That's pretty cool. It's like more of a jankier list, maybe. Okay. Wildwood Scourge for 1. You got it. I'm going to play this as a black source, I guess. Probably should have played one of these disruptions, actually. But we'll see what our opponent does here. Might need these disruptions, especially if they're counting, trying to put a bunch of tap out for counters. Just going to activate the Shambler. Sure. Get in for 2. That's it. I'll get the Thought-Thief down. And there's a land. Wow. Definitely have an opening here. Just think we're gonna go for it. Do we want to make them sacrifice? I think so. I'm gonna lose a Windrobber. Get rid of their Swarm Shambler. Another land, not ideal. So the disruptions could still be good if they're trying to tap out for X creatures. Banishing Light on Rankle, I assume? Sure. We're down to 10. So we've been able to put some pressure on them, which is nice. Primal Might. They've had perfect answers here. Going for Rankle, and we got punished big time. Well, there's another one, so we'll keep that. We do need creatures here. And we have two counter spells. Pretty sure their 3 cards in hand are better than ours. Well, one of them's the land. That's good to know. Yeah, attack for 2. You got it. And nothing. Alright, so we have Rankle and we have a Disruption open still. Try to hit for 4. I'll sacrifice it. Soaring Thought-Thief. Taking away their life total. Pass turn. So again, if they try to tap out for something, we can punish them with a Disruption. Otherwise, we just Thought-Thief. And next turn we have the Mimic that can copy the Thought-Thief. This should be lethal, unless I have a way to stop the Rankle. Three mana open. Alright. What we can do about that? So we counter that at least. Well, let's force him to block. I'm just going to do this now and just go wide. Yeah, we can keep the Disruption if they try to tap out for something. So you know they're running X spells. Great hand. That's pretty nasty. We've got a nice one to counter. They're up to 7s. We still have lethal on board. Okay. We got there. Pretty close game here against the Selesnya counters list. Alright, that's some pretty timely removal. Banishing Lights are pretty annoying. I think Bloodchief is pretty medium here. It does kill the Stone Coils and the Wildwood Scourges for sure. Feed the Swarm though looks a little bit better. Zareth San could definitely do some work here. Skydiver is going to be hard to steal a Great Henge. Anticognition could be good. Let's bring in the Anticognition as well. 3 cards need to come out. Zareth San's okay. Obviously, stealing a Stone Coil or something like that straight onto the battlefield doesn't really do us a whole lot of good, but Great Henge and some other creatures maybe. 2 more cards. What do we not super confident in here? They have counters on their stuff, so probably Heartless Act. Isn't really doing us a whole lot of good. We'll just try it like that. And if we find we need more removal, we always have E2 Extinction. This hand seems okay. I go Swamp here for the Thieves Guild Enforcer, just get that down as quickly as possible. And then Temple, so we have the Nighthawk Scavenger on 3. Swarm Shambler. So that could be feed the swarm target, we'll see. Rather than attacking, they just go for the counter, sure. Well, since they're tapped down, we get easy attack here. I don't need more lands. I'll go and bottom that. We'll attack and then we'll Bloodchief's Thirst. Just get that off the board. They do get a 1/1 out of it. So next turn, probably just get the Scavenger online. That'll help us out with the lifelink to kind of help race them if they're just going to try to make big creatures. So be careful of Stone Coil Serpents, obviously. Thieves Guild is just a mill piece, but it shouldn't take too long to get to the Death Touch. They wisely hold back. Let's go and get the Scavenger down. And pass. Alright, so we got some options open next turn. We have Hagra Mauling if we need some removal. See, Mentor is going to gain some life back when we kill that. So be a little bit careful about what we kill. We do have the Anticognition. And feed the swarm. So we'll see what they do here. Not a terrible spot, but obviously they could have some pretty nasty stuff here. Obviously want to get rid of this Wildwood Scourge. We want to go ahead and feed the Scourge here. We'll lose 1. Go and swing 1 in the air and hold open the Anticognition. 7 cards, so just 1 more from that Magic 8. Conclave Mentor. They can pay the 2. So we'll let that resolve and try to counter the next thing. If they have something. Opponent's getting frisky. We're going to Temple here. Still leave open the Anticognition. They must have 4 mana for the Hagra Mauling. Kind of just want more creatures there, honestly. So we'll go ahead and bottom that. Swing 4. And pass. Could have a Banishing Light or something like that. That would kind of suck. Primal Might's okay because we can kill whatever they Primal Might. If they just tap out for a creature, that's no problem as well. They're just trying to race us. Maybe they have a Shadow this guy. no reason to play these. I'll play it as a black source, I guess. I don't think it matters too much. Doesn't he have something to flash in here? Don't think so. We'll flash this in so we can pump up the other Thieves Guild. We still have a counter or a kill spell here. Ambush. Go ahead and kill that then, so it doesn't do anything. Let's have something else. Wow, Heroic Intervention. They just had like the exact perfect stuff here. That's pretty cool. But looks like the Thieves Guild actually triggered first. Yeah, looks like the Thieves Guild Enforcer triggered first. So they got the Heroic Intervention, gave everything indestructible. They were to fight this, but we still got the mill effect, which pumped this up before the fight effect took place. So the indestructible didn't really matter, because this one now had additional point of toughness, which just got out of range of their 1/1. So if they had chosen the Mentor, that would have done the trick. So it seemed like a bit of a misplay on our opponent's side. Let's see, what did they go for? Yeah, the County Ambush, yeah. So they had gone for the fight effect on the Mentor. And that would have taken care of the Thieves Guild Enforcer. And they'd still be alive for at least one more turn. And we would not have Anticognition open, so they could have had any number of top decks. Skyclave Apparition, that's pretty good to get rid of that. So yeah, these temple lists tend to be pretty tight. Kind of the fun thing about them is it's all about kind of your decision making, your sequencing, and kind of knowing when to tap out, when to hold up the counter magic. The disruption obviously is pretty nice, but it is very situational, and obviously as the game goes on, it tends to get pretty bad. Like your opponent like has to tap out. That's a pretty cool sleeve. Nice. Your opponent like has to tap out to get any value, but I still think it's worth running since we want to kind of play at flash speed as much as possible. Obviously, the Windrobber is just a 1-mana 1/1 flyer, but you know, the Thieves Guild has flash, the Thought-Thief has flash, Brazen Borrower has flash, Scavenger does not, Rankle does not, but it has haste. Zareth San, of course, does have flash, but I'm not as big a fan of this card as some people. You know, it's pretty situational when it's actually good against certain decks, and then you get to steal one thing, and then after that, it's just kind of a 4/4. Which is, if it had flying or some other way to kind of you know, give itself evasion, you know, with some kind of activated ability, then would be pretty busted. But as it is, you know, it's a good card. You'll get at least one thing out of it in most matchups. But I find that certain matchups just tend to just sideboard this out and just kind of lower the curve with it. The Mimic, not completely sold on. Obviously, I need to already have rogues out for this to be anything. Otherwise, just kind of a land, which is if you're opening hand, obviously that's fine. Just play it as a blue source. But you know, if your opponent's running lots of removal and you don't have anything to copy with it and trying to rebuild your board presence, and if you just top deck something that's not a creature, then obviously that's pretty bad. So I'm not completely sold on the Mimic. Obviously it's can be good, but this is definitely something that could be kind of played around with some more. So I'm not entirely sure, but it is definitely worth a look. But yeah, otherwise I feel pretty good about the Disruption and the Hagra Mauling, kind of filling kind of those dual purposes. I haven't really had too many issues with lands, especially in our curve is pretty low. Once you get 2 lands, you can kind of operate for several turns just on 2 lands, you know, Petty Thefting, Soaring Thought-Thief, Drown the Loch, things like that. Sideboard, you know, I'm not entirely sure on Miscast. I do like Anticognition, obviously it fits in really well with the flavor as well. Thieving Skydiver I think deserves a look, but maybe equipment just isn't quite there to where this is even really relevant. Feed the Storm, obviously Dimir doesn't really have good ways of dealing with artifacts or enchantments. We'd have, you know, some counter magic, but it's not like a ton in this particular list. You could go more in on that. And and then maybe go down on some removal or some creatures, but I'm not really sure that's right. So I feel like the list is pretty tight the way it is. Just trying to fill the lands and removal. It's kind of nice having that flexibility. Obviously, Bloodchief Thirst is a super good card. Thieves Goat Enforcer, just being able to fill up your opponent's graveyard quickly, and then being a Death Touch creature later on is pretty sweet. And obviously, the Scavenger can help out in a lot of matchups, especially against other creature-based matchups. And then Rankle is just good value piece as it is. So yeah, this is kind of my take on Rogues. Obviously, still need to tweak it maybe just a little bit more. Not totally sold on the Mimic. Maybe some of the sideboard cards can be tweaked a little bit. But yeah, overall, Rogue's pretty strong deck. Definitely safe to play. Don't have to worry about bans or anything like that. Just kind of a solid list that can help you rank up the ladder fairly well. And it's also tons of fun to play because it takes lots of kind of a foresight and sequencing and trying to figure out kind of what the best play is. Because if you make even one misstep, it can really cost you the game. But if you play it well and play it right, which forces you to really kind of be into the list and understanding what you're trying to do, then it's a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And until next time, make sure you jank with a